All right. Season 2, episode 8 of the Harold Katz podcast. Glad you could all join us. Oren Glickman, always a pleasure to be with Pop and Coach. Coach, a lot to discuss with the YU men's team. Coming off a tough loss against Amherst a few days ago. I think a lot of people are still wondering about the discrepancy between Skyline YU and non-conference YU. So if we could continue to discuss that, I think that would be very informative for the viewers.
Well, before we go to each game, let me just kind of take some history here for you. Most people don't know this. I guess I'll tell her that. In order for you to get where you want to go and to be who you want to be, you got to play teams that are better than you. Period. You know. So in 2000, I want to say 17. Elliot had asked me, how do we do this? And you gotta go get your face kicked in. And there's a reason for it. Obviously, it worked out because I think in the long run, getting our face kicked in um, eventually got us in a crazy roundabout way. Eventually got us to be number one in the country.
Right.
Because in order to be number one in the country, you have to see what it's like to play against number one in the country. So we did that. We stopped. It's crazy, but the rest of the Division III basketball world judges us based on our conference and who we had on our preseason schedule. But what they didn't understand is where we were coming from. These were teams that we couldn't beat a decade ago. And now we're beaten today. So there's it's a strange, for the layman, he doesn't really understand what I'm talking about. You just go, well, you played this team, you lost to them. You played this team, you lost to them. I mean, what people fail to realize a lot is that basketball is really about matchups. And most of basketball is about matchup. Some teams just play better against some other teams. You know what I mean? Like you match up better with that team than you would with that team.
Right.
Like Sunday's matchup with Amherst. I mean, they have the one thing that we struggle with, I think, and have historically struggled with
Size.
size, because we just don't grow them that big. I mean, there's a couple in Israel, maybe, but basically, you get somebody 6'8" in the Jewish community. That's a rare breed. I mean, those guys rolling out a bunch of 6'8", 6'9", 6'10s, as is the rest of that league. So, you have to adapt and learn how to play against teams like that. And that's sort of what this was. Like I said last week, whenever it was, we just got to keep stacking conference wins, man. That's all. We just got to keep doing that. Everything else is irrelevant. The only guy who kind of cares about that is Poppers, because then he wants to pimp him in some national ranking, and I could give two craps about that.
Right.
And it's simply because why? Because a bunch of guys in the basement of their mom's house. I don't mean to say it like that, but a bunch of guys are going to vote. A bunch of guys who, Pop is an informed voter. I'll give him that. And I would say a lot of the guys in the Division III landscape who vote, well, I would say quite a bit of them are informed voters. But I would also argue, and they get mad at me all they want. I don't really care. But most people may not know what they're looking at. That doesn't mean that their rankings are wrong. It just means that they're, much as they think they know, I'm not sure they know. Just like Pop, like I mean, Pop knows a lot now. He's been educated, even though now he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. But the truth is, this is kind of awesome because he has no audio.
No,
The,
I have audio.
oh, wait, what happened here, Pop? No, the truth is that
No,
Pop.
I know enough to know that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I think that's a crucial step.
Well, I think that's knowledge, like, and that's coaching knowledge too, by the way. Like, when you know that you can coach or that you're starting to learn how to coach is when you realize that you don't know everything. Because before you do that, you think you know everything. You understand? And it's the day you realize you know nothing is when you realize that you finally learned something. Does that make sense, or?
Yeah, I think a lot of the viewers understand the fact that you have to get your face kicked in, as we've talked about repeatedly on the show. I think they're just wondering, if you're facing all these non-conference tests and you're losing all of them,
Irrelevant.
while playing Skyline teams and playing well against those Skyline teams towards the end of the season, going into the tournament, how are you still built to face these stronger teams that you lost to in the season come tournament time?
I'll tell you. You know how, like, you play little league and there's that sixth grader who's just kicking everybody's, a fourth grader, he's just kicking everybody's ass, or a sixth grader, he gets to sixth grade, now he's kicking everybody's ass. All of a sudden he gets to ninth grade or high school and he's not dominating like he was in sixth grade. And the reason that is because the gap closes. He's just more mature, he's bigger, stronger, and then all of a sudden them kids who were slow, some guys, unlike Poppers, actually catch up. Other guys stay like Poppers with stick about feet, skinny feet, small, but there's a gap that closes. Well, it's the same thing here. I mean, I think to a man, if you ask YU, would they like to play any of these teams again, the guys on the team would say absolutely, because they know where they were, where they made mistakes, and so then you use the preseason now, where you're playing everybody, to gauge yourself against them. What do we have to do? Where do we have to go? How far is the gap? If you'd asked me before Sunday how far the gap was, I said the gap's closing. But I mean, Sunday we couldn't stop a cold, so we ended up giving up 1.5 million points. So is that a one-off now, or is that going to be our bi-weekly thing, or is that a weekly thing, or is that a once a month thing, or is that a no more thing? I think when we go back to those other games since the last time we were on, who did we play for us? The Marines. We played Mount St. Vincent first.
In Skyline, our first Skyline game?
No, since we had a show.
Oh, since we had the last show. I want to say maybe Sarah Lawrence. Pop, can we get a fact check?
Oh yeah, it might have been. But I mean,
Sarah Lawrence.
Yeah. But you could see in that game, and I thought, there's sometimes you play a game like that, and it's really, your opponent was just this, this, and this, and this. And then sometimes you play a game like that, and you're like, this is kind of execution regardless of opponent. And as a coach, you have to make distinctions like that when you watch your team play to get a good evaluation of what you're doing. And I thought with the Sarah Lawrence game, that was that. Like, we struggled early, I think, and then finally got our stuff together a little bit in the second half. And that was just execution, kind of going through the scouting report at halftime and saying, hey, fellas, what do you say we do what's on the paper here? And then bringing that to the floor. So, and then I thought Mount St. Vincent game, you could just see the last three conferences. You could just kind of see things kind of connecting in a very positive direction. And that's why Sunday was a little disappointing, because we started to execute on both ends of the floor the way we wanted to. But again, at some point you're no longer young, right? Like at some point at this year in this season, you're no longer young. You have to mature a little bit, and I think we're in the process of doing that. And this is what it looks like. It may not be enough for some of our fans, but it looks like this. It's a little haphazard. It's a little inconsistent, but I see the signs of things kicking in. We're definitely playing a lot better than we did a year ago, especially on the offensive end. We need some work. There are nights we need work on the defensive end, and there are nights we're just great. So maybe not for the full 40, but most of it. Maybe 25 against the Marines, I think it was. And they're tough. You know, they don't give up a lot of points, and we scored some. So that was really an execution thing. It was not a. It was a we versus a we over the me. We were very committed to us scoring, not me scoring, if you know what I mean. So I think that's the answer to your question, which is long and roundabout as usual. But the answer to your question is there's a gap, and the opportunity to close the gap is like what I said. You know, Simcha Alpert's sophomore year, Donnie's sophomore year. You know, playing Ramapo. I think the game's tied with 10 minutes to go or something. And then, you know, 2 months later or 3 months later, they're playing in the Final Four. Right. So, you know, and I would have liked to play York with Barr, just because for our scouting report, he was kind of the perfect guy against them. So, you know, we kind of lost out on that one. But you know what? It was the experience that we needed. And I think the whole thing's a growth process. It's not a 1-year growth. It's a 4-year growth for every player. So that you can't worry about March in December. You just can't do that.
Right.
Whether you're a top 10 team or not, or a 400 team. You just got to play. You just got to win your league games. The only thing you're on the table for now is your league. And when you finally realize that, like I'm telling you this. We were never, you know, it probably wasn't till that 18 in a row, like middle of that, I think we got ranked. And the only reason that was important is when Elliott got there, we were like number 420. So for us to be ranked in the top 25, even if it's a non-scientific opinion poll, meant a lot to the school because it never been done before. And from where we came from a couple years earlier, you know, 400 something teams were in front of us. Like that was a great accomplishment. But we didn't care about that. We cared about how do we get to a situation where where we will be considered for that. And we were able to get there like 3 years later. And that's a great accomplishment. And we've been able to sustain ourselves as somewhat of a national program with national prominence, not only because of Ryan or the winning streak or stuff like that, but because we've gone out and played opponents who are national. It takes, some guys won't do that. I've always been, I'd play anybody anywhere. You know, you got varsity, we got varsity, let's play. You know? So you're only going to get better from that. Like I guarantee you, when we're playing Mount St. Vincent, with all due respect to Mount St. Vincent, they're not NYU. And we know what our mistakes were against NYU, where we had to recover from that. And, you know, you get to a point when you play those games that you're playing in your conference, which may not be, sometimes it has been, but may not be that as competitive as some of the national teams. And you're playing these national teams, and you know, you end up finding out a lot about yourself and establishing yourself as one of those future. You know, I think that, you know, we have to remember there's 5 sophomores on the floor most nights, a couple seniors, you know, but basically 5 sophomores or freshmen playing. So it's a little young. I wouldn't say young. I don't like using that word anymore. We were young a year ago. I think we played enough now where we're starting to get through young. You know what I mean? And now we have to be accountable.
So is it there's only two more non-conference opponents. Is it a necessity that they have to necessarily win one or two of those games against Wesleyan or Hope?
There's also Immaculata, but yeah.
Right, I wasn't even thinking about them. My bad.
I don't think so, actually.
Why?
I think, yeah, because you just have to compete. Your focus now should be get better every night. And if that leads you to beating those, look, I want to win. I want to beat all of them. But you can't put too much stock in a situation that's irrelevant. The relevance is getting better. From a one-loss thing, it's irrelevant, if you know what I mean. And sometimes you get better when you lose, and sometimes you don't get better when you win. But recently our wins have gotten us better. Even our losses have gotten us better.
Yeah, I think also coach, I guess to add on, with the quality of non-conference opponents, which we are generally playing, you can't win without playing better, kind of.
So that's true, but why am I looking at a rabbit? Pop, why are you a rabbit?
I'm a rabbit.
Is he a rabbit? What is he?
Yeah, I don't understand that. You look hacked.
Is that a rabbit or a dog, Pop? Why am I looking at that?
Yeah, Pop, why is that? Why are you an emoji right now?
My phone's all messed up.
Well, I like you better this way. You're much better, much better looking. But say that again, Pop. What'd you say? I was a little lost by the alfalfa coming out of your snout. But go ahead. Well,
Do I look good at least?
you look great, Pop. What were you saying?
With the quality of non-conference, see, now I can see what I look like. With the quality of non-conference opponents that we are that we're playing, we can't really play poorly and win. Some of these games.
Look, I also think that's the same thing with your conference opponents, quite honestly. So you're right. I agree with that. And we you can't afford to do that. You're correct. And
How do I look now? I look better now.
I looked you better as a rabbit or a hamster. So like you're right, Pop. But again, the only thing that we should be concerned about is we're 4-0. That should be.
I understand.
But every time you go on the floor, you want to win. So there is a overriding goal and a goal every night. You got to get better. And if we continue to get better, and the more you win, and the more you improve on what you do, the more confident you'll be. So that when you're in that situation again against some teams like them or them, like whoever it may be, NYU or Amherst, you know how to play against it because you know what you didn't do last time. You know what it takes. You know the kind of effort you have to give. You know the kind of maturity you have to play with. You know the kind of hustle that it takes. We were just ugly is not even a word on the glass the other night. Like, I've said this before. We've done it on this podcast. If you can't rebound, you can't win. Period. And when that discrepancy was plus 20, it was amazing. We were within 4 points because I think they had
Amherst
39 rebounds. We had 19 at that point, and we were within. It was a 2-possession game. That's a joke.
Amherst rebounded 55% of their misses. Now, not to say that some of those were just like, I mean, as much as you try to box out, you have a 7-footer against a 5'10".
I get it.
But yeah, certainly some of those were.
Well, there's a big one with. I don't know.
Well, right at the end of the first half.
That one, but there was another one when we made a run and we were down 4 and we gave up an.
Oh yeah.
And we showed no effort going after it. Almost like we deserved to get it.
Right. It was like they had their shot with like 2 seconds on the clock, and so it was like a further.
Yeah. We're a very spoiled group because we got to watch one of the better rebounders of all time in Division III basketball, in my opinion. So we're spoiled with that, and he had teammates who were helping him out too, by keeping others off the glass. So, it's just a learning experience, and that's sort of what this whole this whole preseason has to be. But season basketball, we're 4-0, and that's all I really care about, honestly. The only thing I'm worried about is going 5-0 tomorrow, and that's a monumental task, in my opinion.
Yeah, so let's pivot over to that. I think we discussed before we went on. This is probably the most experienced Skyline opponent we'll be playing thus far. What's your perspective on that?
Well, last time we played them, they spanked us. So now what?
Right.
In a big spot.
I'm sure we're thinking. I'm sure a lot of guys on the team are thinking about that playoff exit from last year.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I hope they're not, and they're just going out and taking care of this year.
And that gym is tough. No, it's like an ice box, right?
Our place to play, and they abused us inside a year ago, and then we couldn't handle their guard play. If I'm not mistaken, I think maybe it was in the regular season we got out the big lead and beat them.
When we played in the regular season, we beat them 85-81, and
we
then
got a big lead, and then they came back, and then we ended up winning the game.
I think something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but then we got spanked in the playoffs. We played with no heart. No heart. Effort was poor. We didn't execute. I'd even argue we had guys who weren't interested in executing. So if you go in tomorrow to beat a team like that, you got to play Wii basketball. We had their number ever since they came back into the league. So I think that was the first time they beat us, maybe.
Yeah, it was.
So, we gotta come out and compete. That's the most important thing, because you're playing them again, whether you do it in your conference, in your round robin or in the playoffs. Odds are you're going to see this team again. So I think it's a test for us tomorrow. I'd like to see us win. Well, if we lose, it's not the end of the world, but we are going to have to fix whatever problems are coming up. And I think we've done that. But it truly does depend on how guys react. And I like the makeup of this team. I like the leadership that they have. There's a toughness about them. The true toughness is, I just heard, who was it? I heard Calipari say it, and I can't believe I'm actually quoting him. He said, he had a guy.
This is gonna be the first and last time, Coach.
Maybe. I think it was a national championship game where he had a guy come in the locker room and say, "Coach, I can't make a shot, so I'm just going to rebound and block shots." And we're going to, he's going to have to score, and he's going to have to score. In other words, he'd come in moping, and his body language can suck, and worried about the me. We come in and say, "Hey, look, I'm not making shots tonight, so I'm just going to do whatever it takes to win." That's toughness. He's right, and that's tough guys, and you need tough guys. If you want to win a championship, there's got to be some guys on your team who are the betas, who are just going to kind of do what the team needs them to do, period. Sometimes that's to score. Sometimes it's to get the ball to other guys who could score. It's definitely on this team to rebound. So, I think Zebi's playing at an All-American level. A lot of that is because he's starting to understand what it takes to play in this offense. It's a very long and difficult learning curve. But once you get it, you shots are easier. You understand shot selection better. You don't force things as much.
Coach. Just a stat. I was looking over some team stats today to try to see if there's anything interesting. Last year, Zebi from 2 was 45%. This year from 2, he's 67%.
Yeah,
and that kind of tells you all you need to know about overcoming the learning curve and finally getting it.
Or in the process of doing it, and shots. Yeah, since since that weekend road trip, he's probably shooting over 50% from 3. So he's letting the game come to him. He's letting the offense work. And now people forget, Orr's only played 10 games in this offense, and as smart as he is, and as brilliant in IQ, there's just stuff you have to learn. And so we're in, you know, and Dotan's getting more reps now, which is good. You know, he didn't get as many as he probably could have as a freshman for whatever reason, foul trouble or whatever. But once you get opportunity, you have to make the most of it. And with opportunity comes understanding. So we're getting there. You know, Zebby's been in this thing for 35 games, maybe max for 25, you know, or for 10. Dotan for longer and Roy for longer, but I'd argue that we didn't run it, our offense, all that well. So, and we're starting to do it now, and you're seeing it. And now, if we just put 40 together, which we're going to have to do tomorrow night, no question about it, we got to put 40 together on both sides of the floor. If we do that, we got a chance to win. Period. Drop the mic. That's really what it is. Just play. Just execute on both ends. You understand, Oren?
Right.
That's what has to happen. We just have to execute on both ends. Period. And if we do that and play for each other on both ends, we'll be all right. You know, if we're over here next week talking about, you know, what went wrong, so then that's a whole can of worms right there that we may not want to get into.
Sure.
But I think again, it'll depend if we compete. I thought for most of the game on Sunday we didn't compete.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah, we didn't compete. I don't think we had the lead for a minute. Not even a second.
Nope.
So, you know, when you get your stat sheet and it says lead changes 0, it's a time with the lead 0.0, you haven't played very well. You haven't played very hard. You know, rebounding is the most underrated have to, you know, you have to make shots, you have to get stops, but part of getting stops, you can't get stops, you can't rebound. Securing the ball, rebounding the ball, and more than 50% of them are going to miss. With it's a pretty good stat. And if you can't get the majority of those 50% of shots, you're going to struggle. So we got to get better in that area. It's been a concern. I told you that at the beginning of the year. It's a concern now. It has nothing to do with 7 feet. It has everything to do with execution, box them out. You know, great coach once told me, I don't care how big your knees are, they ain't bigger than my butt. And he's just like, you know, back in the 60s and the 50s, they just drive guys out of the paint. Same thing. Drive them out. We don't make contact. That's part of our problem. And by the way, Yeshiva is one of 1,000 schools in college now not doing it. Nobody boxes in college. Nobody boxes in high school. So
nobody boxes in the NBA.
Yeah, it's a lost art. It's a lost art. Everybody wants to be pretty. I'd rather be tough.
So it's 3. I think it's now 3 Skyline. 4. I think it's 3 Skyline, 3 non-conference, and then Skyline the rest of the way. No, 4 Skyline, 3 non-conference, and then Skyline the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to play a lot of those, and that's what you want. You want to be able. Screw the resume, screw the SOS. All that stuff's irrelevant. I just hate that.
Right. I'm just
irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
And I think the jury's still out. We really don't know what this team will be come March.
Well, let's see what happens going into break. You know, and then.
So that would be after the Hope game, right?
You got me. I don't know our schedule, but
yeah, that's after the Hope game, because then we have a long.
That's a hard schedule now. We put together a hard schedule, and it the idea is not to pay dividends today. The idea is to pay dividends tomorrow.
Right, but the thing is, I guess the $1 million question is, once you are playing your best basketball towards the end of the season, you're playing skyline ball. Does the combination of getting your face kicked in against a non-conference opposition plus playing strong skyline ball towards the end of the season, does that build you up to pivot back to the strong non-conference opposition for the tournament?
Yeah, you can't worry about it. You can't worry about it, but you will find out if you're lucky enough to get to the tournament. And by the way, it entails a lot of luck. If you're lucky enough to win your league and get to the tournament,
Sure.
then it's not let's be happy to be here. It's we have the kind of schedule where we know what we didn't do and what we need to do to compete with teams like this. Period.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we should be.
And even though Farmingdale are a skyline team, they're the type of opponent that could build us up for the tournament too.
I mean, everybody can build you up for the tournament for it. Like it's one game at a time, man. You just got to get better every night. That's really all basketball is. I said the other day, the stops or defense is just a sequence of 30-second sequences. It's just a conglomeration. Is that the word? It's each 30-second possession is going to entail multiple efforts by multiple people to get a stop. I would argue Sunday we didn't get that. And we had gotten that previous. So we're there, we're close. Some of this happens. We're close.
And just like you said last year, team of freshmen, team of sophomores now. You're not even at the upper class level yet.
I get it, but at some point that gets old. You know what I mean? I agree with you.
Right, but you said we're not there yet to
We're
stop
not there
talking
yet.
about it.
No, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But I'm happy where we are. I wasn't happy with Sunday, but I think up until Sunday I thought was the first day we didn't compete really.
Really?
Yeah.
Worse than because you were very angry after the Nichols game.
Yeah. Well, that's a winnable ball game, but it's not like we competed that day. We just didn't get stops that day.
Also, was this necessarily a stronger Amherst team this year than the team last year that we knocked off?
You have to ask Poppers. I could care less. I mean, they're bigger. In other words, they don't necessarily have to be better than they were a year ago. They have to have their strengths where our weaknesses are. But that's what I mean by matchups. Everybody thinks, well, you know what? But they match up way better against us than they would against, say, Williams or somebody like that. I don't know. Maybe that's not true, but I'm giving you a random.
Right.
It's all about matchups.
Yeah, and Pop, he's I think he's having some technical difficulties. He wrote in the chat that they're definitely stronger this year. They brought almost everyone back from a young team last year.
Well, I mean, we brought everybody back.
But same goes with us.
Yeah, the only difference is that they're playing with mature players, older, more
Yes.
experience. That's all great. It's not an excuse; it's an explanation.
Right.
But we're getting there, and I like where we are. As I just said before, and I think if you take it in small bites as opposed to one big feast, you understand what I mean? It's a small bite process. You got to be playing your best ball in March. That's one of the reasons why I thought we were the best team in America in 2019, 2020. Because the two best games that team played, as I said before, were in the NCAA tournament, which means we were getting better. And that's where we want to be. So, in order to do that, in order to get there, sometimes you got to take it on the chin. You just can't let those losses translate into your conference. Like, you have to stop it at your out of conference beatdowns. And by the way, I'm not even know if they're beatdowns, but that we weren't very good. Second half, we started to run some offense, get a couple stops, but for the most part, we came in like, it was a Sunday in the bungalow colony, and it should have been, we should have come in like it was a Sunday at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. So tomorrow night, 8 o'clock at the Kennedy Gymnasium. We'll resume our Skyline action against Manhattanville, and knocked us out of the Skyline playoffs last year. Then we got some Hanukkah games against Mount St. Mary's and St. Joe's of Brooklyn. Speaking of Hanukkah, Coach, what is on your Hanukkah wish list?
God, I didn't think about that. Will you guys buy me a gift? Is that why you're asking? Because I'll pick something really nice here.
Yeah, please.
I wish for
An income, I could support you.
my Hanukkah wish is that all the hostages are home, and there's shalom ba'aretz, or peace in the land. And I'd like to think that the anti-Semitism that's out the bag right now in America and in Europe will go away, but I'm not naive enough to believe that. That's out in the open now. It's not going anywhere. But at least now we know. But my actual wish is that we get to see all our people returned.
Yeah.
We get to see the annihilation of a true enemy. Asking for world support is not a Hanukkah wish. That's a messianic dream. This is never going to happen, and we're okay with that. We're used to that. And then you guys being healthy and safe, and our children being healthy and safe, and our grandchildren, and that Israel should, the Jewish people should know no more war. And Ohev Shalom V'rodei Shalom, love peace and chase after peace.
Yeah.
That's my Hanukkah wish. I always said if people really knew what the Hanukkah story was actually about, most people, especially in the progressive world, would not celebrate it. But that being the case, that's pretty much the only thing on my mind, and that's. But please do not let it stop you from getting me awesome gifts.
Both can happen. I concede. Yeah.
Well, I'd much rather. I mean, God willing, the Messiah comes at that point by Thursday. But that would be my wish. What is yours?
Same thing, Coach. Same thing.
What do you want, Pop? A good meal somebody else can make you?
I think he just wants to expand his D3 platform, and then he's good to go.
That's true. He's on Rabbit.
And Yeshiva League Pass.
Huh?
And Yeshiva League.
Yeah. Well, he's gotten technical difficulties. It's one of the more enjoyable shows we've had. But yeah. Honestly, that's really takes up most of my day. The thoughts of my people.
Yeah.
And what a great Hanukkah that would be.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Wishing you a happy Hanukkah, happy holidays for everyone who celebrates the other holidays like Christmas and Kwanzaa. We'll definitely keep you guys posted. Maybe we'll do a holiday show, maybe we won't. Thanks so much for tuning in as always, and we will be back with season 2, episode 9 of the Harold Katz podcast in a short while. Thanks so much, guys. Good night.
Bye, guys.